Alright, fellas, today we're going to be looking at trigonometry and specifically SOHCAHTOA with a tan, sine, and cosine. All of the rules and in terms of what to do with a right angled triangle and different sort of like exam questions and harder ones you can get in the exam. So, starting off, we're going to look at question 1. We're trying to find the angle, we're trying to find the sides of this triangle. It says work out the value x. This is a hypotenuse, so the first thing you do, see how I've written SOHCAHTOA, you need to remember that during the exam. You have to label the sides. So you look at the side that's given you, see 35 degrees. The opposite of that is 20, so that's O, you label it as opposites. The hypotenuse is always the diagonal one. Sides, so that's labelled H, and then A is the one that's left over, that's not the opposite or the hypotenuse, you label that as A. You look at what you want and what you have, so you want X and you want X, which is H, hypotenuse, and you have the opposites, so you want 20 and X, so opposite and hypotenuse. As you can see in the top right, we have SOHCAHTOA. So we're looking for O and H. What has O and H in it? So does. So therefore, use sine rule. To then see how you want to do it, you lay it out as a triangle. So you see how opposite is the O at the top. So you put 20 there. And then you have as your sine, you have sine 35 in the bottom left. And you want to find x. So then find that x. You do 20 over sine 35. So you write SOHCAHTOA out, you then label what's the opposite, what's the adjacent, what's the hypotenuse. You see what you have and what you want. You then, based off that, you see which formula to use. So you put this into your calculator as 20 over sine 35, then you then close the brackets and you get 34.9. Right, moving on. Question 3 now. In this is how you work out the size of an angle. It's very similar to the ones before. So you see, opposite the angle is the opposites. So you label that O. The diagonal line is hypotenuse. So you label it H. And the other one you label as A for the adjacent. See how I've done that? So you have the adjacent. You have the hypotenuse. So what has A and H in it? You can look across. A and H is CAH. So use cos. So it's A at the top, C on the bottom left, and H. So you do 16 over 24, because you have the adjacent, which is 16, over hypotenuse, which is 24. And then to find the angle, you put in your calculator, you do shift cos. Shift is in the top left of the calculator, shift cos. You put in 2 over 3, you put in what you found, and that then gives you the angle, which is 48.2 degrees. Moving on then. So you see in this, it's very similar to one before, working out the side, AB. So you see how you have the degrees, which is 35. The opposite of that is O, which is the opposite. So I've labelled that O, and that's what you want to find. Hypotenuse is the diagonal, A is the last side. So you write out SOHCAHTOA at the top of your paper. And you can see we have the adjacent and we want the opposites. So what has A and O in it? You look, you see what has A and O in it. So you use ta, so ka, toa, so it's opposite and adjacent. You can write out as a triangle, which I'm doing here. Opposites up at the top, the x is what you're trying to find, and then you then do tan 35. I just put it as t for it to fit in the box, and then adjacent as 20, so you do tan 35 times 20 to get your value. So they're all pretty much similar as you go through each question, but what you have to do is write out SOHCAHTOA, see what you have, what you don't have, and then relate it to the formula which you're given. And then we're going to move on to a slightly harder question now. This is a more difficult one as there's multiple stages to this. Work out the size of angle BAD. So I'm going to label it there, BAD. And you want to give it to 1 decimal place. So you see how BAD, so it's this angle here. With these sort of questions, you really have to have done them before to see what you have to do. You can see that you can split it into 2 separate parts, a triangle and a rectangle. You can see there's a triangle on top of that rectangle. So you can draw that across there. You can label it. You see how we're trying to find every side of the triangle now to work out that degree. So you do 6 minus 4 to get 2 to find that top bit, because the whole thing is 6 and that little bit is 4, so the rest is 2. You write out SOHCAHTOA. So what we currently have the adjacent and the opposite, because opposite that degree which we're trying to find is 2, and we have the adjacent because the bottom is 15, because it's all 15. So we have the adjacent and the opposite. What has the adjacent and the opposite in it? A and O is TOA. So using this formula, you do tan minus 1, you do shift tan, opposite 2 over 15. So tan minus 1, 2 over 15. And then with this rectangle, every angle, as you can see, it's shown as 90 degrees. So that's 90 degrees, that's 90 degrees, they're all 90 degrees. So you've got tan minus 1, 2 over 15 for that little bit. Then you've got 90 degrees for where the square is. And when you add them together, you get your final answer. There are many more of these types of questions if you go onto Corbett Maths, Maths Genie, Maths and Physics Tutor. Just type them in and then go to Trigonometry, and you get many more of these types of questions. I recommend you re-going over this video and pausing each question beforehand, see if you can now do it yourself. As if you really understand this, it can be quite easy marks to pick up in the exam. If you enjoyed today's video with any sort of questions, put it in the comment box. You can also reach out to me on my email for private tuition. Yep. And leave a like if you liked the video. Don't leave a like if you didn't. Thank you. Have a good one.